I guess we're going to probably be talking about it a lot, so let's get into it. Let's get right into it. Yeah. Here's my main thoughts about what's going on at the moment. Right. I'm from the UK, so we have a different strategy to other countries. It feels like it's a little bit annoying trying to get like a full sense of what the government is trying to do because our major news sources just seem to want to condense and bite-size everything. And even the Prime Minister's speech can't seem to grab it on YouTube unless someone's edited down to like 2 minutes, and so I can't quite get the full picture of what it is we're trying to do. But there are different approaches to dealing with viruses, right? And I think we're sort of caught in the middle. We're not sure if we want to go with herd immunity or not. So right, anyway, this virus is happening. Okay, it's going global. It's spreading everywhere. There's a lot of fear around it, fear and panic. My personal fears are more about things like supply chains and economics. That's where I think things could really get hurt if lots of our systems start to take a tumble and a hit. Obviously, there is the human aspect that is very sad that we're going to lose people that we love in the process. Mainly older people, it seems like, are the most vulnerable and those with pre-existing conditions. Now, how you choose to deal with the outbreak is interesting. It seems like you can go for a sort of lockdown approach where it's about minimizing contact and then having the virus finish spreading, right? Like you stop it in its tracks. And I think the UK isn't doing that. The UK is going for the herd immunity approach, which is the idea that you actually let people get infected, and then as the majority of people who will get over it like it's a normal flu and it won't be a big deal, they will then be able to be immune to it, right? So once you're over it, you no longer pass it on. And so if you can get enough people to have got the virus and gotten over it, then it doesn't spread that way. I'm going for a more of an isolationist approach. Like, it's very easy for me to isolate. But if our country is going for herd immunity, then maybe it's better to get it as someone who's probably not going to have a problem with it, right? I'm young, I'm fit and healthy, and my immune system's in good shape. Do you have the stupid panic buying, says Aaron Hurt. Yeah, where I live, we're out of toilet paper, we're out of hand sanitizer. I personally need to use hand sanitizer because my skin on my hands gets all cracked up and itchy if I use soap. And it's kind of ironic. I usually have, I'm someone who's got a cupboard full of hand sanitizers, and I stopped buying them because they stopped doing the brands that I like, and I was waiting for them to restock, and now I can't actually get any. But when it comes to panic buying, I haven't, I don't know what the threshold for describing it as panic buying is, but I have brought food to put in the cupboard. Now, what I usually do is buy food and all of it's gone in 3 or 4 days, right? I don't actually have a lot of food lying around that lasts very long. I've got a few things in the freezer. I tend to prefer just buying what I need as I go along, so I don't have stuff stocked up like other people might. So what I have done is just brought some couple of bags of pasta, porridge, some tin stuff, and just chucked it in the fridge. And there's enough there for a month or two if worse comes to worse for me. I don't know if that counts as panic buying or not, and I understand that panic buying can be bad. I don't feel like I've gone out there and tried to buy as much as I can. I've just brought a reasonable amount of stuff. And now I'm prepared for the worst if I get it and whatnot. I've got food in the house, so I don't have to go out. Then we got a donation from The Geek Online saying, my uni's been closed for the foreseeable future because of COVID-19. It's been spending the time off building a giant rocket ship and boarding crane on my survival world. That is cool, dude. I will pass something on to you that I was listening to these teachers talk about it. About, if we shut down the schools, they're saying it's going to be a disadvantage for students that then don't go and proactively teach themselves, and it will end up being an advantage for the students that choose to use revision material and whatnot and do that. So bear in mind, you've been given time off, but your studies, you still got to do your studies and try and come out ahead. Jamie Twells for 11 months saying, I don't usually send messages, but I think it's important to remind people that if you're not a medical expert, oh, that I'm not, yeah, very good. I don't think medical experts are advising people to catch the virus. There's currently no evidence you'll be immune after recovering. Well, that is interesting, my friend, because I got that from a medical expert, someone in our government who has a very professional sounding title. Oh, information, right? Like, I'm not trying to spread disinformation. I'm very aware that there are just always a massive amount of opinions and debate over facts and what to do and what not. You know, I've been listening to various scientific sources as well, you know, podcasts with people in the know, and kind of feels like all of them are, you know, saying different things. Sometimes that's just the nature of language and conversation that things go that way, yeah. I'm not a medical expert. What I am trying to do is relay onto you some of the things I've been hearing and, you know, using my own thoughts and whatnot to try and see what seems fair to say, right? I obviously can't advise anyone here what to do. I think you should just take your government's advice, right? Like, we could sit and debate about what's the right or wrong way to deal with something, but sometimes one of the most important things, and I could be wrong in this situation, but is to stick together and to do things together. If everyone sticks to the same strategy, then the strategy has a better chance of playing out the way it is intended to be. If people kind of go, no, I'm not doing that because, you know, it's not the way we should do it, and then you have people not sticking to the same strategy, it can make the one strategy you're trying ineffective. And the reason you might be debating if the strategy is right or wrong could be over small details. Sometimes it works like that, you know. This reminds me of, like, where I've come onto YouTube, I've constantly sort of been in sort of like leadership roles, you know, working with people working for me, being parts of a team. Being the YouTuber guy, I often end up being the one making some decisions, and I've often seen that a lot of the time, first of all, it's about actually making a decision and then sticking to it. I've been in situations where I've been unable to stick to a plan, and then you just see it fall apart. Alpha John says, almost all medical experts have no idea what they're talking about with COVID-19 from my experience. How would you know they have no idea what they're talking about, though? If they're medical experts, what would you have to be to know that they have no idea what they're talking about? You know, I'd rather hear contradicting opinions and be aware that they're all medical experts. You know, they're giving out different sorts of advice based on what they know about. I wouldn't then say they don't know what they're talking about. Lol, some rando thinks they know better than medical experts, says Space Cadet. I tried to word it a little nicer than that, but that's sort of the point, right? Like, we need to check our own ignorance more often, right? So if you're taking anything I'm saying as if, hey, I'm the guy in the know, I'm always just trying to present it to you in a way where it's like, this is what I think, this is why, do what you want with it. Pick it apart, reason against it. I'm not trying to say, oh wait, I didn't craft. I'm not trying to say I'm right. I'm a person, I'm allowed to have an opinion, and I've thought things through. Maybe not thought them through enough, but not trying to tell you I'm the expert, that's for sure. Crazy Eyes says, it's airborne, what about making air filters to kill it? Think about how much air there is and then how many filters you'd need. Not practical. One of the things about it being airborne is that lots of people are using the medical, surgical things that go around your mouth, you know, little masks. They're entirely useless at preventing you getting it because you're sucking in air through the gaps when you breathe. But if you've got it, you breathe out onto the cloth, and that's supposed to help. So all these people going around nabbing up these medical things when they don't have it, the people that have it need those. That's probably one of those panic buying downfalls right there, that we create shortages of supplies for the people who need it the most. Something you've got to remember about, you know, buying all the toilet paper and supplies from the shops, right? Nightingale says, I personally don't agree with our UK's government strategy. It appears to be more focused on keeping the economy going. I didn't get to read the rest of that message. What I would say is, like, appreciate the effectiveness of working together. to make something happening. And also, I really do think you have to consider the economy. I know the human cost always feels like the most important thing, but if you don't consider the economy, then you might oversee how an economic disaster could end up having an even bigger human cost, right? Like there's a lot of concern about healthcare systems becoming overrun by the coronavirus. It's sort of similar to that, you know. You've got to consider that keeping the economy turning, keeping supply chains moving so that food can get to people. If we totally disregarded our supply chains and our economy, we might cut food supplies, and you know, like all of a sudden there's no food in the shops, and that could cause absolute chaos. I'm not saying that's what would happen. I don't really know. That just seems to be the theory behind that reasoning, right? That the economy is also a factor that should definitely be considered. Keeping the money flowing into the pockets of the corrupt people, you mean, says Rare Adelon. No, I don't mean that at all. I think if you have a viewpoint like that, you know, that it's all about money all the time and all about the rich and the wealthy, you might kind of pigeonhole yourself into a particular way of seeing the world. And it's a way I used to see the world, and as I got older, I kind of realized it's not really the full picture, you know. Greed is a factor. It's a big factor, you know. It's a thing that we all have as humans. Greed is an element, something that we have among us, but to treat it as if it's the sole defining force of what makes parts of the world turn, it's a bit short-sighted. You know, and to play up the coronavirus to some sort of rich versus poor thing doesn't make a lot of sense, because a virus can't define who's rich and poor, right? Like it's not going to be biased about who it affects. Shieldcat says in the US it's definitely a rich versus poor thing. Well, I didn't get to read all that message out on loud, but you certainly articulated something better there than just saying it's about evil, corrupt things. This is another thing as well. I think being articulate is really important, rather than speaking sometimes in like these sentiments. Oh, it's the corrupt, evil people at the top. Like, let's get a little bit more specific and analytic. It makes it easier to understand things. Someone's pointed out that you'll be disadvantaged if you're poor compared to being rich in these crises, because being rich gives you access to the healthcare, right? But that's not conspiratorial. That makes sense. If you've got more money, things are always cheaper, right? Like if there's a recession, there ain't one for the rich. There's just a recession for the poor, the working class. They have limited non-fresh food to 2p per person in Morrison and Lidl, says Patrick Riley. Non-fresh food. I was talking to my mate earlier who was saying that, I can't remember what shop it is they went to, but everyone had ransacked all the like long-term stuff, but left all the fresh produce there. Which, I mean, it kind of makes sense because you're not buying for today, right? But that fresh produce, that's all the healthy stuff. That's all the keep yourself fit and healthy and your immune system in good shape. That food is. and they probably should do. It probably makes sense. Like I said, you know, I stocked up a bit, and it's because I didn't have any to begin with, right? Like, I don't know if that's why people are buying. It does seem a bit unfair, but like, if people have already got loads and they're buying, that's the problem, right? Hey X, do you invest in stocks as the market player? I think you do with that name, jeez. I do not, and have not ever, but I've always wanted to. I got a little bit of money I could, put into an investment, like into stocks. And, you know, with the stocks plummeting and all of that stuff recently, I was kind of thinking it's kind of weird because all the stocks are going down and the economy's crashing and all this, like, as they talk about it in that way. And I'm thinking now makes the most sense for me to die, because it's quite likely going to rebound. And so then I was thinking, well, we know it's going to rebound. Like, why is it dipping? It doesn't make sense. And Iskau actually explained it to me, that the reason that you see things crash like this is because a lot of finance and money that people have revolves around like loans and investments. And so when crises like this happen, people get put out of work. It means that naturally they have to sell their stocks to do things like pay for mortgages. So when you're when your income is cut, then you have to turn to your investments and sell them to make money, to make ends meet, right? So that's why you have this this big downward surge, because people are selling because they need the money to pay their mortgages because they ain't working because they're sick. But you don't get taught that stuff in school, do you? They don't teach you anything about how the stock market works. Like, not. I think if I were in school and they tried to tell me, I wouldn't care at that time. I imagine many of you listening probably don't care either. But yeah, now I'm kind of curious about it. So yeah, if I've got some money I want to like put into stocks, which is something I've always thought of doing, now would be the time in a weird way. Gash says, guys, don't talk about coronavirus. Appreciate the build he's doing. I appreciate that you want people to appreciate the build. I don't mind talking about the virus. We've talked about it a lot already. It's going to be part of conversation everyone's going to be having. If you missed my bit earlier where I talked about it, I believe we've got Adam in chat. He might be editing it for the second channel. I think my main takeaway from what I said earlier is it's the best thing to do is to probably take the advice of your government and work as a country. Another thing I'm a bit worried about is people trying to make it political. Like, I don't like Boris Johnson very much or his politics, but in this situation, he's the man making the decisions, and you need someone to make the decisions, right? It's important to have a leader and important to stick with them in times like this, I think. Mikel Arteta has it. Gonna miss football, but for the best. Yep, shutting down the football is for the best, of course. If it drags out, I was thinking, right, if it drags out, like, how are they going to handle the end of the season, or what happens next season? Do they stagger out the rest of it? Like, what if some teams, like, let's say they're in a situation where they have to go, right, we're gonna say this season is over, right, and we're gonna start a new one, even though it never finished. Do they let teams stay in the same league and just act as if promotions and titles didn't count that season? Like, if they end up in a situation like that, I mean, some clubs are just going to be so gutted, and others are going to be relieved. Like, it'd be very strange, whatever they choose to do, and they're probably not going to be able to please everyone, are they? Magister, subscribe to Amazon Prime. Phonix Ash 888 is here for 3 months, saying, is the coronavirus big where you at? It's big everywhere, pretty much, isn't it? I think there's a couple of places that haven't really been hit, like Russia, I think, is doing all right, but, like, it's a worldwide problem at the moment. Where I live, there are people that have got it, but, it's going to spread everywhere. It's kind of like the thing, right? And that means because it can spread so far, it then becomes unlike the flu in the sense that, the death toll can be so much higher. Now, if you see people throwing around numbers and talking about, well, the flu kills more people in a year and all that, like seasonal flu, seasonal flu is different, it's locational, it's not something that's spreading everywhere and getting everyone. This is one strain that's going to spread everywhere, and that's why you have to deal with it, because it's not like the flu. So if people downplay it, don't let that make you think, oh, don't have to worry about it then. It's not to be downplayed, it's to be understood. This is definitely a serious global issue and the virus to be taken seriously. That said, it's not like SARS and the other more deadly viruses. So this is an incredible insight into how the world reacts to a global virus and could be a good lesson for future viruses that be more far fatal. If I understand correctly, coronavirus is actually like SARS. SARS is a coronavirus. I believe maybe Ebola was as well. If I'm butchering all of that, I apologize. But the next bit I'm pretty sure is spot on, right? Like, what happened with SARS could have been like this. But the problem is it became too deadly when it mutated. When a virus becomes more deadly, it kills the people that have it. Oh, Ebola isn't a virus, okay. And yes, SARS is a coronavirus. So I got the Ebola one wrong. So anyway, it mutates. And it becomes too deadly. Now, when a virus is too deadly, it means it kills off the host before it spreads. And that can stop it in its own tracks because it stops spreading because it's killed off the people that have got it, right? Obviously, that is terrible that it's killing people, but it's one of the reasons that SARS kind of stopped in its tracks. And the mistake might have been to not have continued to seek out a vaccine for it after, right? That's something we're going to have to do with the coronavirus, is hopefully get a vaccine. Now, the coronavirus has this middle ground of being relatively easy to spread and not so deadly, but it does kill people off. And the problem with its combination of those factors is it means its potential to spread everywhere is vast. And therefore, by spreading in vast numbers, those smaller quantities of people it kills become very large. Because, a percentage of something small is small, a percentage of something large is large, right? Or not as small, I don't know. You get the point, right? But also, you can listen to lots of you can listen to these professionals saying a lot about this stuff. There's also some that are saying, like, when it comes to statistics and numbers and deaths and how many people is it killing, there's a lot we might not actually know yet. They don't know if China is suppressing some of its statistics that come out. They don't know, like, apparently it can pass through people from one person to the next, and if they don't realize they've had it because it hasn't really affected them, they don't know how to trace that. There's a variety of factors that make understanding what's going on particularly tricky, it seems. The virus isn't that bad. There is only a 2% chance of it killing you, and then most of the people with other sicknesses. Alright, saying it ain't that bad, there's only a 2% chance, you could be thinking a little too individualistically about it. There's a lot of people on this planet, and 2% of a lot of people could be very, very tragic for us, right? You have to understand the numbers better, I guess. You have to understand what they mean, how they're implemented. If it had like a 2% chance, but like it wasn't going to spread everywhere, then it maybe wouldn't be as alarming. But it's going to spread everywhere, and it's 2% might not even be accurate. More originally, when I first heard about it, 2% was a number that got thrown around a lot, 2 to 1%. But since it's really come out of China in the last month and headed into Europe, then all of a sudden it seems like 5 to 6%. Yeah, that's something I said the other day. Before we move on to another topic, don't make this about race. Don't make this about pointing fingers and blaming. Like, that's really not the way to go about things. Doesn't help the situation. Well, obviously, in the future, we have to hope that our governments and our World Health Organizations work together to prevent these things again. But pointing the finger and make it about country and race just ain't cool.